I mean, by the looks of your handwriting, it looks like you're going to be a medical doctor. Hopefully you can read it. There you go. You happy? Made fun of Johnny instead of you.
Welcome back, Broncos, to episode 3 of To Build a Bronco podcast. I'm here with Coach Cece as our third guest. How you doing today, Cece?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on today, Johnny. I appreciate you asking me to do this.
Heck yeah. You were one of the first recommendations I thought in my head to come onto the podcast to do with.
I love it. I feel at home here, so I'm happy that I was recommended. I love the kids. I love the staff members, and I've been a part of the community for quite a long time. So.
Okay. Well, how was your walk here?
I almost blew away.
Yeah.
I was telling your teacher, I think I'm just going to have to start marking kids absent because we take attendance outside.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Usually they just start flying away. So makes it an easier day for me, though. 55
Yeah.
kids down to maybe 50. I'll take that.
I don't know why. Every day I choose to do a recording day, it ends up being like insanely windy.
Yeah. Does that affect any of the electronics?
Oh, well, not here,
Yeah.
but my hair definitely every
Yeah.
time.
I think you have great hair, Johnny, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. All right. Well, for the first question, how was your childhood all the way to becoming a teacher here like?
Yeah. Specifically in education, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about? Yeah. I enjoyed school all the time. It was actually one of my favorite parts of my childhood. I had a few stints where I went to kind of a Christian school and then into a public school and then back to a Catholic school, back to a public school. And then, by the time I went to college, I ended up in a Christian school and then I ended up going to a public school again. It was just kind of back and forth. And I really appreciated the perspective of having multiple worldviews. You get in the public school system, and I even see this from my perspective as a teacher here. You kind of get locked into this one world, secular worldview.
Yeah.
And the part that I appreciated about going back and forth, because not a lot of people have that option, is you got kind of multiple religious perspectives as well as the secular worldview and the understanding that not everybody sees everything the same. Mm-hmm. And I think that was probably the thing that I remember the most growing up. Obviously, I was raised in a different family than everybody around me, but it was nice to be able to set my morals and my values based on how I was raised and what I thought was right, but also allow for the growth of friendships and family without having to lay judgment on people, I guess, as I could say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a neat experience in education. Plus, both my parents and my sister are educators, so it was kind of destined for me to end up in education.
Yeah.
And I think maybe because of that, I always had a healthy respect for it, which is why I enjoyed the process so much.
Yeah. So why did you choose to go into PE, or did you choose that in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did not choose to go into education, actually. I started out right after I finished my bachelor's degree going into strength and conditioning. My university hired me on to work with the volleyball team, the football team, and the water polo team. And then I was also still kind of working with track and field at the time. So I had a pretty large plate that I was working with there, and I thoroughly enjoy it. You can tell by the weights class we're in now, and you're just in regular PE, but I still try to get you guys in there. And then I went to do my master's degree, and I realized that the field was kind of small, and it was difficult to get jobs in if you didn't leave. And unfortunately, or maybe not unfortunately, but fortunately for me, I had to make a choice between a family or a career, and I chose to go with a family, so I decided to move out to Palm Desert, and I asked my wife to marry me, and then I got a job at the school she was working at Xavier College Prep, and my first stint in education was there teaching chemistry, girls' health, and then anatomy and physiology, which all freshman girls' health class, that was just hilarious. Especially when you get to the reproductive section.
Oh,
you think boys are immature? I think girls might be a little more immature than boys
Really?
at that age.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So,
what was the easiest subject for you to teach there?
for me, it was anatomy and physiology. You would think it'd be health, but for me, teaching in just about everything I do is built around how much fun and excitement I have on the topic. So that's why I love teaching weights so much, because it is literally my favorite topic under the guise of physical education. But anatomy and physiology was another topic that I struggled with in college. And because of that struggle, I learned to love it a lot. And I took the lab version with all the nurses and pre-med students where you had to sit there and stare at a dead body for 2 hours a day. So I really learned to appreciate not only the structures of how we're made and how unique we are, because even between the two bodies that we had there, it was wildly different.
Yeah.
But also how fantastic it is that all those structures are able to work together and create the organism and function as the organism that we are.
Yeah.
It's miraculous, I think.
You're just completely mind blown when you see how the inner workings work of your body compared to what we have as a machine.
Yeah.
It's like nowhere close as complex.
No, yeah, absolutely. And there's some, inefficient parts of our body too. I definitely am willing to recognize that. But the fact that they're still able to function inefficiently and, like I said, produce some of the amazing things that humans are able to do, it just, you put it right. It's definitely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Never fails to amaze me. Even when I go back and read previous literature and previous chapters and books, it makes me remember things that I've forgotten. It extends some of those performances and some of those things humans do in the real world that much more to allow you to think, wow, how did this person even achieve that type of accomplishment?
Yeah. So how long have you actually been at this high school?
This is my 7th year. Yeah. So I started out as a substitute in the spring of 2018. We had just moved back from I was working at the University of Oklahoma, just moved back to Palm Desert. And I hopped on as a substitute teacher, took over a math class, which that was the first time I had ever taught math. But it's fun. And then by the fall, they had a PE opening. A couple of people had moved on, and so they offered me the job. I was in a credentialing program, and had already taken my CSETs, and just kind of that's basically how I got into teaching physical education, which is wild because I had a lot of friends in physical education, obviously with my dad being a physical educator, and then being in a kinesiology program for 1,000 years because I have 3 degrees now. I knew tons of kids that signed up directly for physical education because that's what they wanted to do with their life. So that's another area that I'm super fortunate of, that I fell into a PE position. And I hope that doesn't come off as cocky, that I just kind of fell into that because it's hard to get a PE job.
Yeah.
But I'm very grateful for that. And it was by no means what I wanted to do, but I learned to fall in love with it over time. I really appreciate it.
Dang. I really can't imagine you as a math teacher, though. How was that experience for you?
It was an interesting situation because there was this struggle between a certain staff member and the admin team. And so I kind of stepped in to mitigate the issues.
Yeah.
And the classroom was set up around a culture of worksheets. And so kids did not love going to that class. And so what I tried to do is just completely 180 that culture. I still had to teach based on what the teacher was teaching. And it was basic. It was like integrated 1. There was a senior math class for kids who literally didn't want to take class, but they were trying to put them in something to get credits,
Oh, my gosh.
And then there was a stats class, which I had just come off of taking like maybe 4 straight semesters of stats because I was in my doctoral program at University of Oklahoma. So I was happy to teach stats.
Yeah.
The other 2, I had no idea what I was getting into, but it turned out to be way easy.
Really?
All I did was I took the worksheets and I said, hey, instead of you guys working alone, we're going to do this together. And so I'd go through a couple problems together on the board. Then I'd put them in groups. All the stuff they teach us as teachers to do.
Yeah.
I just tried to put that into practice. And I think that's a lot of setting up the structure as a teacher. If you use some of the basic concepts for educating individuals, getting them to build themselves into, teams, and also getting them to build their own confidence with the subject. A lot of times the subject matter is not important. And I know that's like a violation of everything. Teachers would probably come after me for saying that, but I truly believe that it's not the subject matter that matters. It's that you're guiding them through the growth and maturation process to prepare them for the real world.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of things that kids don't understand about mathematics at the high school level. It's not just to get you to learn algebra.
Yeah.
It's not just to get you to learn geometry. It's to teach you how to problem solve. And so that's the culture that I tried to instill for that last, semester
Yeah.
of that class. And I think it worked out really, really well. All the behavioral problems decreased. Kids were passing the class, which is obviously important to the school district.
Oh yeah.
And they were having fun. That's
Yeah.
really, it's like I said, my entire life is built around what do I like to do for fun?
Yeah.
That's how I want it to be for you guys too.
I never thought of it like that way you put with the math classes. I thought they were kind of like, well, if you learn the basic math, why do you have to learn the advanced stuff? And now that kind of makes sense, that can be used to learn problem solving for
Yeah.
future events.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you're not going to use every single step.
Yeah.
But you can use basic algebra 1 and algebra 2 for predictive equations. Like if you're going to go into investing in something, or if you're setting a budget, you can use geometry for redesigning your house or
Yeah.
building something. It's all relevant, and I know at a young age they don't understand that, but that's exactly why we're here, is to show them the relevance. And that's another part of teaching too, is you have to offer analogy that students can understand. I think that's very difficult sometimes for adults to offer those analogies to be able to come down to a student's level,
Yeah.
because we forget from time to time that we were there at
Yeah.
one time, It's why we sit there at the front of the class sometimes and we're, gosh, this kid's a freaking idiot. It's why do they keep doing this? And then 5 minutes later, we remember, oh, I think I did that when I was a
Yeah.
freshman or a sophomore or a junior. So,
Do you use similar methods when you did math to certain PE in your class?
yeah, so the basic umbrella that we try to go off of is cooperative learning, right? So
Okay.
getting kids in groups, getting them to learn from each other, getting them up and interacting. The best part about PE is it's already built into the subject,
Yeah.
You're playing sports, you're doing workouts together, you're socially interacting all the time. So it's very easy for a PE teacher to meet the standards based on cooperative learning methods. Where the differences come is the selection of the certain types of exercises that you put in. So
Yeah.
that's a great question. I probably wouldn't set a kid down in a group of 4 and be like, hey, I'm going to give you a word problem and you're going to figure it out. And then you're going to pass it to the next kid and he's going to check you to see what you did. And then it's more interactive and up and moving. So one of my favorite ones to use in PE is called Coach Athlete,
Yeah.
right? And you usually get them in groups of 2, groups of 3. And I love doing this in the weight room because it's really easy to use with different weight training exercises. In my weights class, I give them basically a motor competency sheet, which means it's going to go through the cues of each position of the movement. Let's say we're using a back squat, for example. So I like to go joint by joint approach. This is what should be happening at your ankles, knees, hips,
Okay.
spine,
Yeah.
shoulders, cervical spine up at the neck. And they can look at their friend while they're doing their squat, and they can check off, oh, okay, his chin is neutral and his spine is not overextended or overflexed. And then they go down to the hips. Okay, there's not a ton of flexion happening at the hip. The hips are neutral. The knees are bending down below parallel. The ankles are allowing the knees to track over the toes, and blah blah blah. Whatever
Yeah.
the requirement is, and then they can turn around to their friend. And they can do the same thing. They could show them, hey, this is what you did. Now you take the clipboard and you're going to check me off.
Yeah.
And there's progressions of that drill too, with the use of cameras and cell phones pretty much now, right? Where I just call it video coach. Okay, you're going to video your friend,
okay.
then you're going to analyze it with him. You're going to tell him 2 positives and then 2 things that your friend can improve on. And if you have
Yeah.
questions, then you come over to me, and it builds kind of an instructor version of it where I can actually intervene as well. But I like to use some of those structures kind of like that. Build
makes
kind
sense,
of
yeah.
accountability between the students rather than just accountability to one authority.
Yeah.
Because particularly with exercise, and I try to teach in this freshman year, you're only accountable to yourself. After you leave here, I can hold your hand for 4 years, but after 4 years, you've got to figure out how to do it on your own, what to do, what makes you
Yeah.
better. You got to know how to lose weight. You got to know how to build muscle. You know how to get stronger, get more powerful. And all those tools are available to them in physical education.
Yeah.
They just have to want to engage with it.
I think the weight room has definitely made it a lot easier to enjoy doing physical education here too. Because it's just awesome to be in the weight room full of all the greens and the logos of the school.
Yeah.
And then just having the proper equipment that everyone would always use.
Yeah, big time. The logos and the branding and stuff was not my idea because I've never really thought creatively.
Yeah.
I'm more of a mechanical nuts and bolts kind of guy. So like I did design it, but all I was thinking of was just like, how do I fit more platforms in here?
Yeah.
And how do I put more, connections on the platforms so that like you go in there, you love to use the landmine.
Yeah.
Right. I would have never dreamed that we would have had something like that in there before. I have one at my house.
Yeah.
But, I never thought, where am I going to fit these in here? Well, it was perfect. When we redid it,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is just a nice, easy rack attachment. Now, instead of having one, I can have 14.
Yeah.
And that changes. That's dramatically changed the way that I program for the football team and the track team in the weight room. I use the landmine twice a week now.
Yeah.
Just because it's such a versatile tool.
It
You can
is.
still achieve some of the same goals, but have a little bit of variety so they're not doing the same bench press or the same dumbbell press
Yeah.
every week. Now we got, 2 or 3 different varieties of pressing and pulling that I can have in there. And it becomes, again, I'll go back to this, but it becomes fun.
Yeah.
Right? I love having the kids leave the weight room in the afternoon and just saying, man, I'm really sore or I'm really stiff, but that was enjoyable. I had a
Yeah.
good time doing it. So
What do you think is a main difference between PE in high school and PE from elementary school and middle school?
yeah, that's a good question. So with physical education at the elementary level and somewhat into the middle school, the focus is on some of your basic sporting skills. And what I mean by sport skills is things like learning to kick, learning to throw,
Yeah.
learning to dribble a basketball, learning to catch. Think about all the different, learning to bump and set and volleyball, all the different individualized sport skills become the focus at that age level. And the reason for that is there's I would say there's probably about a dozen studies right now out there that are still ongoing. It's really neat. I have one of them that I talk about up on my own personal YouTube site, where they evaluate kids' skills at a young level, whether that's kicking, throwing, and catching, something basic, right? They'll choose 3 to 5 of them, and then they'll evaluate them 20, 25 years later to see whether they are more physically active. And the overwhelming answer is yes.
Okay.
Right? So these individuals that learn these basic sports skills at a young age are more likely to participate in physical education or just physical activity, we'll call it,
Yeah.
when they get to be 25, 35, 45 years old. And so it's very important to establish that at a young age because motor skills, or we'll say gross motor skills because in the classroom it's fine motor skills, right? So
Yeah.
large body movement, motor skills are tied to confidence, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to build in these individuals is not just the physical capacity to know that they can do it, but the mental capacity to know that they're able to do it and do it well enough where they're willing to go out of their comfort zone
Yeah.
and continue to do it for the rest of their life. Whether that's play a game of basketball 2 days a week,
Yeah.
play adult soccer, whatever it is, play ice hockey,
Yeah.
there's leagues for all that stuff up to 50, 60 years old.
Yeah.
So, and then in high school, just to finish off the question there, the focus is more on fitness, right? Fitness and then social interaction becomes
Okay,
really
yeah.
important for that age group. Actually, the standards get refined down when they get to high school because that needs to become the focus. And somewhere kind of in that middle phase, like 5th, 7th, 9th grade, is when they do the physical fitness testing, which is why the shift tends to take place later in the middle school years and then early into high school. And then that's when you're supposed to introduce all the different modalities, aerobic capacity. So you're doing things like running, swimming, biking,
Yeah.
and then some form of strength training, whether that be with bands, dumbbells, barbells, medicine balls. You're supposed to introduce plyometric training, explosive jump training, boxes, sprint training. All of those different, we'll say, fitness modalities are supposed to be. You're supposed to be exposed to those in high school.
Okay, yeah. I like these questions we have so far. Sadly, we only have 3 minutes left, so I think what we'll do is we'll continue this conversation on another day, and I'll just add the two together.
Sounds like a plan.
So for now, you guys will get a cut. We're going to be like a day later to do another recording of this.
Alrighty.
All right. And we're back, Broncos. So where did we leave off, actually?
I honestly don't even remember. So much goes on
Yeah.
between that, like the end of the school day. I go to track practice, and then I have strength and conditioning with football and track at the same time. And then from there, I go home, hang out with my kids. And
Yeah.
I got 3 younger kids, so it's just like tornadoes around the
Yeah.
house until 7:30, 8 o'clock hits when they all just pass out from a food high or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I barely remember anything from yesterday too.
Yeah, I probably would have to watch the episode again.
Yeah, we just rewatched it on here.
Oh, yeah. That'd be the whole commentary. right
Yeah.
there.
All right then. What would you say is the difference from going to high school when you were a kid to high school now?
If you would have asked me that question 10 years ago when I started teaching, I would have probably made a huge fit about how kids don't understand structure and they don't know the importance of education. And for the most part, I think some of that is still somewhat true, but I'm kind of starting to understand that I think kids just aren't able to be controlled, or maybe they don't want to be controlled. And so part of my job here is to manage the chaos while still guiding them down the right path. Like I mentioned yesterday, the majority of this process is not about the content in the class, which I know a lot of teachers don't want to hear.
Yeah.
It's truly about growing these young kids into young adults and helping them be successful when they go to join society. And so I think nothing's changed, to be honest with you. I was that age once. Kids are influenced by pop culture. And from the plentiful psychology classes that I took throughout college and lessons from my sister, who's a psychologist, I think kids are largely a reflection of the environment they were raised in. And the more I've started to realize that, based on the different places I've taught,
Yeah.
I think the easier it makes my job for me, because I've taught in 2 major distinct areas. I've taught in a very rich Catholic school where kids were affluent and they had access to anything they could ever want. And I would say Banning is kind of polar opposite if you
Yeah.
compare it to that school I was at. And the kids are no different. Aside from a few cultural goofy things, the way the kids speak or the way that they dress. But like I said, all that ebbs and flows with pop culture. Those kids that are rich and kids that maybe don't have a lot, they're still kids.
Yeah.
So they all kind of act the same. And the neat thing about kids is a lot of times they don't even know that about themselves when they're in relationships with each other, because those types of things don't matter. And I think that's a really interesting factor of innocence with kids. They truly understand the things that do matter, and they're going to reveal that to you. And unfortunately, at that age, education is not one of those things.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I get that. And I think that's why a huge part of the curriculum is like these psychosocial factors, teaching
Yeah.
kids to mature psychologically, teaching them to be positive in their social interactions with each other, or just be able to have communication and be able to talk to each other
Yeah.
and adults. And yeah, so yeah, 10 years ago, I would say a lot was different, but now retrospectively, I think kids are just the same exact way they've always been.
Okay then. Actually, I'm going to turn the TV down because I realized that was going.
Oh, the little feed.
Do you think that the education system encourages students to become what they want to be?
That's a good question. I don't think you can make a blanket statement that it does or it doesn't, because an institution is a reflection of its bits and pieces. And with education, the bits and pieces, I think, are predominantly the teachers and the administrators at the school sites, right?
Yeah.
And so based on your knowledge and some of your friends' knowledge, you probably go from class to class every period, and you have individuals who make you want to be there and make you want to learn. And you have other individuals that you get to that class, and the first thing you think to yourself is, I can't wait for the bell to ring.
Yeah.
Right? I think largely the educational institution is motivational, just because it's there and it's an opportunity for everyone to take advantage of. Now, whether people are taking advantage of that is, I think, the real question. Because I've always been a part of the philosophy that it's not the job of the educator and the institution to teach you. It's the job of them to reveal to you the secrets of the
Yeah.
world, the help you scratch the surface of the topics. And then it's your job to dive further into the hole and figure out what you want to learn and what's most important to you.
Okay.
I think it does a good job presenting those topics.
Yeah.
And I think that that society has kind of gained a tainted view of what education is or what it is supposed to be. Because as you know, and I know you probably looked into this a lot, it was created to make good citizens, right? Make our citizens better, more intelligent, more functional in society together, more accepting, more respectful, responsible.
Yeah, that
you
way
go down
we
the
can
list.
grow as a country.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's gotten away from that because I don't know, kids think that they're just supposed to absorb all this stuff by osmosis.
Yeah.
And it's very much not that way, right? There's an active process, everything down to sitting in your seat and actively listening and trying to understand what the teacher's saying, to scribing it down on a piece of paper and trying to figure out what the words mean together or what the numbers mean together, and then putting it into action, which, like I mentioned yesterday, I think the teacher does have to facilitate that process. And maybe some of them don't, and that's why it can be flawed.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, all of us are here, us individual pieces of the education system.
Yeah.
We are here to motivate you, keep you here, and create the next best versions of us.
Yeah.
Because that's what my dad always used to tell me is a good teacher is someone who creates the next best version of themselves. That's going to be you, Johnny, coming from my third period class. That's going to be, guys like Justin Smith in my weights class. And I'm just because I'm looking at them, Kaylee and Elijah in third and fifth period last year, that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's why I try to do my best to give you guys everything that I know that are the best tools to stay fit and healthy and eat right and create good lifestyle choices for yourself.
Yeah. I think most kids don't realize too what a privilege it is to actually even have a flawed system, to have educational system close to you and available to you, as in some countries that's not available, or just not that far away back in time that wasn't available.
Yeah, that's a great statement, because I think education is definitely being seen more as a right than a privilege nowadays. But I, obviously, as you just made, and I believe too, I think it is a privilege. And with that privilege, that's where you have to start to be responsible for your own actions.
Yeah.
Once you recognize it's a privilege, it's your job to tell mom and dad to take you to school. It's your job to get out of bed, feed yourself, get your backpack. It's your job to do your homework, study. And maybe that's a responsibility that a lot of these kids are just not ready for. Like we mentioned in the previous question, maybe it's not valued by them yet. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think a lot of people realize it somewhere along their life that education's important. And that's what's neat about the system, is it's always there for you to go back to it. Community college, university, they don't have an age limit on them. Obviously, you can time out in high school.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Sometimes people are ready to go to work and then they realize they want to come back and visit the education system later.
And then sometimes they just need a different perspective to realize the value of the educational system.
Absolutely. Like we mentioned yesterday, right? Everything's about being able to step outside of your perspective and see what other people are witnessing it. And maybe kids' abilities to realize that at a young age is what leads them to education a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the thing we ought to be focusing on in education, is how to get kids to realize different perspectives. Because in reality, that those different perspectives are educational in themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Just getting you to think or even look what it's like to think differently than yourself.
Yeah. Do you think that lower budget schools have more quality to their teachers than schools that have a lot more of a budget?
That's such a multifaceted question. I think because it's like, where's the money coming from? Why is the money lower?
Yeah.
And I would say the opportunity to learn is still there. I don't think you need a lot of fancy gadgets and things like that, but that's coming from a physical education teacher. I mean, I've taught a chemistry class before and an anatomy and phys class before, and I was able to have all these chemicals that I wanted and everything I could ever ask for. But I can't imagine what it would be like to try and teach somebody an abstract topic like chemistry and not have a way to show the kids what it looks like or how to visualize it and give those physical examples. And the same thing with anatomy phys. I teach an anatomy phys class at a college, and it's a lot different than when I taught it in high school, when I actually had cats for us to dissect. I could go in and I could show them the exact structure we're talking about.
Yeah.
With whatever particular system we're focusing on, right? It becomes different to visualize those types of things and understand that it is a reality and not just a drawing or just an abstract concept when you don't have the tools to see that. So I would say you're probably going to reach more learners. You're going to reach more students and get more kids motivated with education if you have more money.
Yeah.
And more access to those things. But I still think that the opportunity to learn and the willingness to learn is probably not going to change just because you add more dollar signs, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I would look at the equation there.
Yeah. It really comes down to the teachers and how they use the resources that they have.
Yeah. Yeah, and as a teacher, I mean, I don't think we get paid poorly. I think we actually get paid pretty well for the minimum amount of work that we do.
Yeah.
But still, you know, it's like I'll just give you an example. I think we get like $300 or $400 at the beginning of the year from the school district, which is fine.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to stretch that throughout the year, it's probably not going to get you everything you need.
Yeah.
You know, but that's why we have certain budgets on campus. If we need things for field trips or extra materials, we can reach out to administration. They can usually help us out. Also, as a teacher, you have the ability to write off on your taxes, things that you buy for your classes. So, you know, and in California, most of us make well above the average. And so those types of things become considerably better to have tax breaks and ways to write things off as you get it further into your career. Mm-hmm. So I think there's ways that you can stretch your budget and invest in your classroom without breaking the bank to make it more accessible for your learners, or I guess, you know, more illustrious for your learners, depending on your topic area. For PE, obviously, you know, I might go buy some equipment or something like that. You know, it's not much of a difference. And a lot of times PE departments are associated with athletics, and so the budget's a little bit bigger. So it's a little bit easier for me. I'm not the science department.
Yeah. What's one thing that you hope students will take from your class?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think because that could span a lot of topic areas.
Yeah.
Right? I think the answer that I would have to go with is just self-discipline. I mean, I start off my freshman classes letting them know, look, this is your first year in physical education. This is our first journey together, getting you moving, teaching you how to do not only different exercises, but how to make your own programs, how to play different sports. And this goes a lot better if you choose to take the journey on your own, or you choose to be disciplined to start to learn some of these things on your own, and you need less hand-holding. And that's how I kind of phrase it for them, is I can hold your hand for 4 years, but after 4 years, it's your job to join society and take responsibility for your own program. You know, whether that is a running program, or you join a gym, you get a membership and you go 3 days a week, or you join a professional basketball, not professional, obviously, that'd be kind of cool, but, or you join an adult basketball or adult soccer league, and you've figured out the way to keep yourself physically active, and you've done it in a positive way for yourself. It's fun, like we talked about yesterday. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's the big one for me, is kids learning self-discipline, specifically in the disciplinary of physical education.
Yeah. All right, now we got some fun questions.
Let's do it.
If you could get rid of one bad habit you've seen in your class, what would it be and why?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one because I see a lot of bad habits, but I'm trying to figure out which one I think is the most prominent one. And I guess it would have to be just flat out apathy, right? If I could get kids to avoid apathetic attitudes and at least invest some amount of interest in the topic area, so by the time they become motivated to move, they at least have the tools because they at least thought about it, or tried to connect with the material, maybe even if they didn't run or do push-ups or learn how to lift weights properly. At least they took the time to learn the material and understand it. So when it comes to the point that they are interested in getting started on a physical exercise program, they know exactly what to do. Other than that, I can deal with some of the other problems. It's easy to talk to kids about poor lifestyle choices. Yeah. You know, high school is such an impressionable age, but I can talk to kids and I can share data with them about drinking and smoking, using recreational drugs. I could even talk to them about sedentary lifestyle. But when it comes to specific attitudes, that's really something that I, as a teacher, don't have any control over.
Yeah.
And I even say that to my athletes too. You can show up, you can have, great nutrition, you could sleep 8 to 10 hours a night, you could be in the best shape of your life, but if you don't show up willing to work and wanting to get better and wanting to be successful, I have no control over that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, and the same thing goes for the previous couple questions when we talked about, education, the education system. I know kids don't love school. I didn't love sitting in a classroom for 6 hours a day. Like, I get it. It's not the best thing that you could be doing with your time.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to be productive, if you're an individual who's self-motivated. But if you can kind of get over that attitude of I don't care and into at least an attitude of I'm aware of this and I'd like to learn a few things, and I realize that if I sit here and I actively listen for an hour, I might take away one good thing each day, then I think that's going to make you successful in the future.
All right.
Yeah.
What's the most ridiculous excuse you've heard to not participate?
Oh my gosh. I consider every excuse ridiculous, as you've probably made one along the way, and I'm sure I made fun of you for it too.
Probably.
But shoot, everything from I'm having girl problems to my mom told me that I can't participate today because I stubbed my toe. I've had notes from parents about ingrown toenails, notes from parents about kids being sick and they can't exercise. My son has asthma. Like, why didn't you bring your inhaler?
Yeah.
But I don't know what takes the cake on that one. The funny thing about doctor's notes for PE, for me, is I think it's always hilarious when you have a kid that can't do PE, and then 3 hours later you see them at sports practice.
Oh my gosh.
Just going ham
Yeah.
on the soccer field or whatever it is, and you're just like, wait a minute, you can't do 5 push-ups and walk a lap, but you can play an hour of basketball after school with your team.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Seems more like a mindset thing at that point.
I 100%. I agree. It's just like that last question. And I always tell kids, so I don't care what the excuse is. I always tell kids, though, bring me your pass. Like, I'll have a conversation with your parents, but here's how I want you to come to class every day. Tell me I can't do X, but how about I do Y?
Yeah. A compromise.
Yeah. And as long as they come to me and they say, hey, I have a doctor's note and I can't do anything, I can't do this, but can I do something else? I'm like, yes, you made the right mindset. You made the right choice. And sometimes if the kids do that without me even prompting them, the first day I'm just like, no, you can just relax today because you said the right thing.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, oh, you have a lower body injury? Let's do some upper body stuff today, or vice versa. Yeah. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's something in there that's ridiculous.
Yeah. You'll think of it later after the podcast, like, oh, dang it.
Yeah, and then I'll just upload it as a comment.
Yeah. What kind of hobbies do you do outside of school?
Yeah, so surprise, my favorite thing to do obviously is weight train. So I do love lifting weights. I've been doing it ever since I was probably about 4 or 5 years old when my dad started teaching me. And so it's definitely been my number one hobby. Aside from that, because everybody knows that here, I do enjoy playing guitar. That's one thing that I grew up playing kind of like late high school and then into college. And then I let it go for a while and then I've picked it back up again. I enjoy looking at like pop music, country music, those kinds of songs. So acoustic guitar is kind of what I appreciate.
Can you play any songs?
I could play a couple country songs. Yeah. Like I said, I've recently picked it up again, so I'm kind of getting back into.
Yeah.
I know my chord progressions really well. I know a couple of good scales. I think I could probably pick up an electric guitar and play a little bit.
Okay.
Just because I know scales pretty well. But one thing that I'm trying to learn now is just like the country style finger picking, so I can play some of the advanced riffs, because I just think that would be more enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I'm a little motivated right now. I've been watching that show, that country show Nashville on Hulu.
Oh, yeah.
Which I know it's kind of a girly show, but I love it. I'll take it. And then I do enjoy, I enjoy just about every outdoor activity you could possibly think of. I'll take my kids hiking. I just bought my son some rollerblades for Christmas, and him and I go rollerblading together. I used to play hockey growing up, so I went and picked up some gear, and I'm about to start playing hockey again. Yeah, I like reading. I mean, not exciting stuff that most people read. I like to read research,
Oh,
break it
that's
down,
interesting.
see where I can apply it.
Yeah.
Like research from my field, obviously. If you gave me an article in genetics, I wouldn't know where to start. You know?
Yeah. What would you say is the happiest moment you have throughout the year, every year?
I actually just had a pretty big one recently. It's usually about halfway through the year when kids start realizing the routine and they start thinking outside of the box and going over the top with questions that I'm asking them. So like for my weights class, for example, pretty much most of my happy moments come in those classes because like I've mentioned a dozen times, I really love that discipline and I could live in the weight room for the rest of my life if I needed to. I teach my kids how to write programs in the weightlifting class, and we spend a significant amount of time, maybe 4 weeks, just going over the educational portion, and then about another week doing individual programs, and then they spend about a month trying out their programs on themselves. And I recently had a kid bring a program to me. It was Justin Smith. He brought a program to me, and I was just like, holy. This is the best program I've ever seen a high school kid write.
Oh, dang.
And that's a no mean like a diss on him because I've seen worse programs from professional strength and conditioning coaches.
gosh.
Like this kid, he bested some people that I know. And I went and showed my dad the other day just to be like, am I tripping or is this really good? And I showed him the program and he's like, oh, this is great. Are you going to have your powerlifting club do this? And I said, I didn't write this program. Like a high school kid wrote this program. And it was wild. He went and within a night, he like learned all the equations on sheets or Excel, you know.
Yeah.
He's writing in different regressions or adjustments into the program. So basically the program for an individual who wants to do the program, it just becomes mindless. Like you plug things in and you just go to work.
Yeah. All right. Dang.
It's so when I see kids truly identify with the material like that and go beyond what I even expected, because that's really what it was. It blows my mind and it makes me so happy to know that what I'm doing is working, even if it's just for one kid like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a proud moment this year.
What would you say is your favorite music artist or genre?
Oh, man. It's kind of a tough one for me. You know, growing up, I was not much different than high school kids. I liked listening to hip hop.
Yeah.
But my parents listened to country all the time.
Really?
And like right at the end of high school, it hit me. The country bug bit me, you know?
That's what I feel like is happening to me too. I'm kind of starting to like it a little.
It's good. Yeah. Maybe it's an acquired taste.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, I would say my favorite genre is country. I typically go to you know that festival Coachella down in the desert?
Yeah.
So the third week of Coachella is a country festival called Stagecoach. I've gone to that every year since 2006, 2007,
Dang.
I think maybe. No, 2008. We'll go 2008.
So pretty much
that sounds
like
about right.
as long as I've been alive.
Yes, yeah. And I would never miss it. I mean, it's also kind of an annual thing for me and my wife. We started doing it when we were dating. We just kind of stuck to it forever. But so that's another thing. You know, it helps that it's my wife's favorite genre as well.
Oh, dang.
But I would say right around my second or third year of teaching, one of the things that got really popular was electronic dance music, EDM.
Yeah.
It just exploded. And so I took a trip to Coachella Fest one year.
Oh, gosh.
And I went to the rave tent.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the I was loving it, dude. Put on the neon colors, you know.
Yeah.
I'm there from like sun up to sundown just raging. And I got really into it. And so even now, today, I'll still listen to some of that stuff. I like the trap version of it, which basically sounds like rap music without words. And I think I like that
Okay.
because I used to like rap a lot.
Yeah.
And it just kind of takes that piece out of it for me. And I just get to listen to the musical part of it, the instrumentals. Yeah, but country's probably my number one. If I was going to pick an artist right now, you know, it's funny. I was thinking about this. I was like, I wonder if he's going to ask this question. I recommended this guy, a couple of guys that just came on the scene maybe 2 or 3 years ago. There's some new guys. One's name is Zach Top. I really liked him. I heard from my brother-in-law about him, and he was at Stagecoach last year.
Oh, dang.
And the guy sounds like he's straight out of a 90s country video. And he looks like it. He's got the mustache. He's got the mullet.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's wild. And then there's another dude that I'm really loving his voice right now, Warren Zeiders. He's pretty
Okay.
good. And then, there's a girl that I really like right now. I'm trying to think of her name though. She sings this song called No Caller ID. But I've just been obsessed with her voice too. She's so good. I'll try anything, because I really enjoy acoustic guitar. I think that's one of the reasons why I like it, because I love the acoustic guitar, and there's a lot of acoustic guitar in country music.
Yeah.
And then the vocals too. When you can get them, like the vocals stripped down, you can listen to like some of the samples they put out from little bars in Nashville and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love that. There's no engineering. It's just raw talent. I can get down with some of that.
As I was growing up, I always thought country music was like, well, I mean, yeah, it sounds good, but they're always singing about the same thing. It's like some girl or a dog ran away or something. I was like, what?
I call that AI country now.
Yeah.
I feel like there's still, because it's very poppy now.
Yeah.
And so like if you were to go check out some of those, Megan Maroney, that's that girl's name.
Okay.
If you were to go check out some of the names that I mentioned to you, they're not as poppy. I don't think they're poppy at all. Zach Top
Yeah.
literally sounds like he's out of the 90s. But yeah, I mean, a lot of your people nowadays, like Luke Bryan, like that's pretty much pop music. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. I'll get up and
Yeah.
dance to it and do some other stuff. But
Yeah, but I've recently been hearing some country music that has some meaning to the lyrics, and I was like, I would listen to this now.
yeah, maybe that's just because the scope of music is just getting broader.
Probably,
I think,
yeah.
I think like genres are becoming almost undefined now. Even in country, like you hear a lot of rock, you hear people venturing into like rap now, people like
Yeah.
Morgan Wallen, and everybody's embracing it.
Yeah, because like we found all the genres of music pretty much, so now the only thing left to do is try and combine them in any ways possible.
I think so. And that's just what you're seeing as people, instead of being defined by one thing, obviously it's a big marketing ploy too, right? Like
Yeah.
if you get exposed to a bunch of different groups of people, you're going to make more money that way. But I think it also sounds better, and it seems to fit well with our culture here in America,
Yeah.
because we are a big part of driving culture worldwide. The more that you can cross over and add different people from different genres, the more you become relevant to the rest of the world and not just your specific niche crowd.
Yeah,
And so I think because we're seeing that, it's not that the questions are irrelevant, but like genres almost are becoming irrelevant.
yeah.
So, and I like that. That's good. That's how it should be.
Have you always thought of music and songs differently?
Like instrumentals versus lyrics.
Well, because to me, I think a song is music with singing in it, and music is just the instruments.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that I would make the same classification.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it depends which two you bring together to make the song too.
Oh, yeah.
It completely changes the song, I think, if you use a piano versus a guitar.
Yeah.
So,
Do you like songs that will take at least like a minute or two to actually get to the lyrics part, and the whole time it's just like one simple beat you're hearing the whole time?
I like a build-up. I mean, I guess my answer would be yes, because I like EDM, and that's really EDM
yeah.
right there. You get almost a minute and a half, 2 minutes of build-up, and then you get the same phrase over and over again.
It's almost like Mexican music because it just takes so long. And then, I mean, for me, I end up getting really bored of it. I was like, come on, just get to the next part now. I'm ready.
You're like, I need something a little more advanced. Give me some
Yeah.
jazz.
The jazz is actually good too. I kind of want to listen to that now too.
Yeah, I like some of like the slower jazz music when I'm feeling like I need to
Yeah.
relax or focus. I have this playlist on Spotify. It's called Jazz in the Background. It's such a good one. Or like you go on YouTube, you search like jazz coffee shop,
When you think of jazz, what's the first thing you think of?
studying. Yeah, like I mean, even deeper, I guess I think about thinking. If I need to concentrate and figure something out, that's my first choice of music to go to, because it's going to get me in the zone. Most of my dissertation work from when I did my doctorate, I would just put the jazz in the background or whatever on, and I just go to work, start writing.
Yeah.
So, because that's majority of what that process is writing, and just being frustrated with having to correct everybody's corrections on your paper,
Yeah.
managing stress.
It's probably
And that helps. It's like jazz music is very distressing.
Yeah, it is, but it's probably not a good thing that the first thing that comes to my mind is Call of Duty 3 because of the music that was in there.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
And
hilarious.
then after that, I end up thinking the whole eras of jazz.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's like it's really bad, but then it gets like really good for
Yeah.
my mindset.
Well, again, I think that's like a product of it not wanting to be fixed to a certain genre, you know?
Yeah.
Jazz was very much about creativity. And then a lot of song got added to it, and then it
Yeah.
became kind of creative and I don't even know what to say the word is, but it's different. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's not everybody's cup of tea.
I seem to like songs a lot more when they're like if they're hip hop and they end up adding some kind of saxophone or a trumpet in there out of nowhere. You're like, whoa, this sounds amazing, and
Yeah.
it sounds good.
Yeah. No, it's as much as you can get away from like the same old instruments, piano, guitar, I think you just add that much more of an accent to your songs that people can identify to. Like I was mentioning
Yeah.
with going outside genres, it's the same thing with instruments. Just a little tweak to it. That's why rap is so popular, because they can just sample from anything in the past,
Oh yeah,
and then they write a poem over the beat, and it's nostalgic for a lot of people. Oh man, I remember this song, and then they get into the music, and then they learn the song, and then before you know it, it's stuck in their head.
yeah,
And it's really, I don't want to say it's easy, because obviously it's difficult to be that lyrical and have a broad vocabulary.
yeah,
But I'm sure the sampling process isn't that difficult. It's just
Yeah.
finding what people are going to want to identify with at that moment.
yeah. It's
So-
a lot easier to make music after there's been decades of music made now.
Yeah, exactly. The sampling library is
Yeah.
endless.
If you could choose a different subject to teach that you haven't taught before, what would it be?
History,
History?
100%. Yeah, I have not taught history, but it's always been in the back of my mind.
What kind, like world history or U.S. history?
It wouldn't matter to me. You know, I'm your typical man. I like war. I guess I don't like war, but I enjoy studying and learning from war.
Yeah.
And I like to, I'm sure every person holds this philosophy, you know, the more you learn history, the less likely you are to repeat it.
Yeah.
Right. U.S. history is obviously a big passion of mine. I am a patriot. I love my country. And I think it's important to learn everything about our country, just so we keep progressing,
Yeah.
moving forward. But yeah, I guess if I was like a college professor and I had a specific topic, dude, it would have to be something World War II, Vietnam, Korea. I've gained a lot of interest recently in the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts.
Oh, yeah.
Those are very interesting to me. Everything from the conspiracies behind people, why we went there, to the truth behind why we went there, if it is the truth.
Yeah.
And then the individual conflicts, to learning about, you know, individual Medal of Honor and Purple Heart recipients and some of the individual battles that they went to. There's some great books out there from guys that served in those conflicts and some intense situations that you sit back and you read and you're just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I would be able to react
Yeah.
in that situation. I had the opportunity to go to a dinner, like a massive donor dinner out in the desert.
what?
I didn't know I was going to get invited to it, but my dad has a student who was in Delta, Army Special Forces.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, you want to come to this dinner with us? And we showed up. And you know who Rob O'Neill is?
I think I've heard of
He's the
him.
guy who shot Osama bin Laden.
Oh, what?
So he's there, and he's given a talk about that night. And there were some other things associated with it and you know, auctions and stuff like that. But that was insane just to be
Yeah.
able to be face-to-face, hearing that guy tell his perspective, right?
Yeah.
Coming back to perspective and his story. And because there's people that demonize him in the media and there's people that praise him, but it's awesome to go straight to the source of something and hear it directly from the source's mouth. And I think that's the
Yeah.
coolest part about history, is that we have all these different accounts of everything that happened. And then we have the truth, the actual account.
Yeah.
And then you get to weigh which one you think is the best option or the best way to receive that information.
Yeah.
And with war, it's just so difficult, right? Because the winners write history.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I think it's a phenomenal topic area. I enjoyed it when I took several history courses in college, and I still try to read a little bit about it here and there when I can. So,
What would you say World War II is your favorite part of history?
probably not my favorite part. I think
Like
I'm
your
more
favorite
obsessed
era?
with. with like the general topic of politics more than I am anything.
Yeah.
But World War II, maybe, yeah. World War II is pretty sweet. But I also grew up, I mean, you're growing up at the same time I am. I'm not that old. I'm 36. Like, we're getting Call of Duty just shoved in our face
Oh yeah.
for the last 20 years. And the majority of them, before we got to this modern warfare and Black Ops, like a lot of it was focused on
Yeah.
World War II.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess it is. I would have to say my favorite part of World War II is storming the beach in Normandy.
Yeah.
Such a risk to take, and I don't know how the hell it became successful.
Yeah.
Probably because it was the biggest surprise. Really, that's
Yeah.
what it was. But like, it's not even. I can't even say it's nostalgic because I wasn't there. But like going back and playing like Call of Duty, I think it's Call of Duty 2 or Call of Duty 3, where the initial mission is storming the beach in Normandy.
I think it's 2.
It just makes me feel so cool to like live that specific moment, and I've read a lot about it. I read Band of Brothers, where the book starts out with that scene too, you know, where they're
Yeah.
parachuting in the night before it happens or 2 nights before, and it's just such an incredible risk and an incredible act of bravery by those individuals. It makes me proud
Yeah.
to be here, but also what a massive strategy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable strategy, and just the strategizing from the military in World War II and guys like General Patton. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of those accounts have been taken by football coaches and basketball coaches and built into their philosophy
Yeah.
for how to lead a successful team. And I think that's probably why I enjoy it so much, is because there's a lot of parts of history that are important, don't get me wrong. But when it comes down to the strategy of war, it is very relatable to the strategy of sports and athletics, obviously, minus the death part.
Yeah.
But yeah. I would say, yeah, World War II is a pretty good one.
Yeah. I mean,
pretty important.
It sounds like something out of a movie that could only happen in a movie.
Yeah.
But then to think of it like this actually happened, humans can actually do this.
Yeah. We can be pretty destructive.
Yeah.
That's our darkest side.
Well, either we could be really destructive or the most creative thing on earth.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely positives and negatives to being human.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the biggest downsides, as we're seeing in not a lot of places, but a couple places right now, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not our greatest feature. And I'm actually kind of surprised that it even gets to that point anymore, you know, because we have such an advantage technologically nowadays. You know, you can
Yeah.
shut down an entire country's, you know, energy infrastructure, or,
Yeah.
you know, you could pretty much destroy their economy with sanctions.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to me that it still reverts to war.
Oh, yeah.
I thought after the whole nuclear standoff, and I'm acting like I lived at that time, but like during the Cold War, nuclear standoff, that was basically the new war. You know, we don't actually have to
Yeah.
fight each other. We'll just threaten each other with nukes back and forth. And then
Yeah.
it ended cordially. The wall came down, Soviet Union was disbanded, and
Yeah.
like life moved on. But I'm still a little bit surprised that we have physical conflict instead of people just taking advantage of each other technologically now.
Yeah. I guess that says something about the current world leaders still. Even if you don't have a good perspective on me, you got to respect that they haven't used their biggest weaponry yet.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of them are still calm and collected enough.
Yeah. Until we see where the next generations go,
That's true.
especially for America.
Yeah,
But hopefully that's turning.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, that's about all the questions I have. What time is it?
12:27.
How much time do we have?
You guys are in 40 minutes.
I think you guys are in fourth. You guys are in 4A right now,
Yeah.
so you guys have until 45.
Okay. Wait, how long do you say we're in?
40 minutes?
Oh, dang. I guess I should ask the last question and then we'll end it off.
Oh, we're at 40 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm here 40 minutes straight.
All right.
Dang.
Well,
Plus the other clip, too.
I think this is
Oh my
the
gosh.
longest podcast you guys have.
dang. dude.
Probably.
My bad.
Yeah, you're good. This will be the chill episode with more informingness in
I
it,
like
too.
I like reading, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Every question that I'm going to ask every guest at the end of the podcast, it has to do with it being called To Build a Bronco. what do you think to build a Bronco means to you?
I would imagine it's about a little bit about education. It's a little bit about character and the long journey that it takes from, preschool all the way up through high school. It sounds to me like we're taking the opportunity to expand the community's knowledge on the people that are here,
Yeah.
just so they have a better opportunity to know who those people are and get into touch with them and learn more from them. Because after all, that's what builds a stronger community, right? Is allowing individuals to get to know each other a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then it's like that with classes too. If you don't know your teacher very well, you're not very likely to learn as much from them,
Yeah.
because you're kind of like, I don't even know who this person is. And so that's what it kind of sounds like to me when I think about this podcast. And I know we talked about it a little bit before too. That's what it sounded like to me, was you're trying to just get everybody's voice out there.
Mm-hmm.
So the parents, the other teachers,
Yeah.
the other members of this community, they know in fact who's educating their kids,
Yeah.
who they are, where they're from, and what they're all about.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Well, I guess that wraps up episode 3 of To Build a Bronco. Thank you, Coach CC, for being here. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. All right.
cool. Thanks, brother. That was fun.
Yeah.